Executive Officer at Aurora Cannabis. Thanks for being with us, Miguel.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so I mentioned the focus on international medical cannabis. We saw sales up about 17% quarter over quarter, and the company says you now have the largest footprint internationally among licensed producers in Canada. So can you describe the focus on the international market and the growth trajectory?
Well, listen, it was a great quarter. We had record net income. Free cash flow was extremely strong. But importantly, it was that record around international medical cannabis that was the strength. Aurora operates, not only as the leader in Canada, but the leader in many markets, such as Germany, Poland, and the UK and Australia. And so we've been focused on high quality medicinal cannabis and innovative products in those markets. And we've seen significant gains.
And Miguel, which of those countries that you mentioned are growing the fastest, and are those gains sustainable, or how long are they sustainable for?
Well, the two biggest markets, which would be Germany and Australia, are growing the fastest. We're seeing significant patient counts go up, and we absolutely think that those growth levels are sustainable. They're high margin markets. They're difficult to get into, and they take a lot of expertise that we've gained here in Canada over the past decade. So we absolutely think that our gains are sustainable.
And what is the competition like? We know that there are others getting into the international market. Presumably there are a number of European players as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, Canada as an example, it's a very diluted piece of business, particularly on the rec side. It is a challenge in order to meet all the regulatory hurdles and production hurdles in those markets internationally. So you don't face as many competitors, but you definitely face, well thought out and experienced competitors. Aurora has been successful and able to export high quality medical cannabis from Canada into all of those markets. And while there are good competitors out there, we've definitely taken a leadership role.
Now, in your news release and in your conference call, the company talked about the success of plant propagation. Can you just give us a quick 101 and explain what that is exactly?
Sure, absolutely. We were able, to invest in a tremendous non-cannabis plant propagation business, which is out of BC and services North America, florals, vegetables, and importantly, taking, into consideration some of our redundant facilities in Edmonton where we're growing orchids. So it's a wonderful business. It's an accretive business, a profitable business, and one that we see a lot of growth in. And we're excited again about exporting high quality products from Canada into the US.
Now, back to some of the numbers here in the quarter. Adjusted gross margin, 63% roughly versus 52% the previous quarter, and adjusted EBITDA, 26%, and that's more than double the previous quarter. So give us some more flavor on how you're doing that.
Well, medical cannabis is some of the highest margin business, in the world as it sits, in a very protected space. And we're excited about that globally. And when we look at our margins outside of Canada, you see very high margins in those key markets that I mentioned before. So it was a result of operating in those markets, but also the result of the efficiencies and our lower COGS that we're seeing in our production facilities here in Canada. And so when you have those type of margins and top line growth, it drops to the bottom line, which is why you saw such strong EBITDA and free cash flow performance.
Miguel, you hinted at the fact that you're de-emphasizing adult use cannabis in Canada. Sales were down 5% roughly quarter over quarter. What are the plans for that part of the business? Are you just going to let it roll along? Would you think of selling it or spinning it out?
Well, the rec business in Canada is definitely challenging, but we learn a lot about consumers in the largest rec business in the world. Whether it's innovation, new products, or all of those consumer interactions, we can take that and apply it to our, expansive medical business. We also know that some of these markets around the world will go from medical to rec, so that experience is there. So we're not looking to get out of it. We learn a lot from it, but we do manage it because it's nowhere near as profitable as the global medical business.
Now, you're also in a positive cash flow position, $27 million, I believe, in the quarter. You're sitting on $180 million in cash. So what are the plans for that cash? Could you do some acquisitions, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked incredibly hard to be profitable and to be free cash flow positive, as you mentioned, and we're excited about that $27 million number. The 180 million is one of the strongest balance sheets in the industry and allows us to be opportunistic. We're investing in our own business where we get great returns, but even as early as a year ago, we invested over $50 million in a business in Australia, which, as we talked about, is one of the fastest growing. So we like having that balance sheet. It gives us a lot of opportunities, and it definitely is an advantage for Aurora.
And Miguel, I'd like to ask you about the stock. I'm looking at it up by nearly 40% today. There didn't seem to be a lot of short interest heading into today. Everybody who's followed the cannabis sector for several years now, since legalization, and even before that, know that it has been a rough go for companies like yours the last several years. Is this a meaningful pivot point now, a meaningful inflection, do you think, for the company?
Well, what we've always thought is that shareholders want a sustainable, growing, and profitable company. We've always believed that that's, in the medical cannabis world. We're one of the best at it. I'm hopeful that shareholders and other key stakeholders understand what Aurora is about. And you can look at this quarter and look at the free cash generation plus the top line growth and get excited. But you're right. When you trade your whole float in one day, there's obviously a lot of interest. And we, expect quarter after quarter to be able to demonstrate to shareholders the strength of our company.
All right. Well, very good. Thanks, Miguel, for your time today. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Miguel